Hello everybody, this is Refresh, and I'm here to bring you a battle between two Innistrad Crimson Vow sealed decks. Over here we have a Dimir deck, and over here we have a Golgari deck. And you can find links to the videos where I opened the packs and built these decks in the description box below, as well as other games that I'm going to be playing with them. We're going to be playing the best of 3, and we'll roll off to see who goes first. Dimir rolls an 8. Golgari rolls a 6. Dimir will choose to go first. Dimir draws a Soul Cipher board, Concealing Curtains, Swamp, Soul Cipher board, Swamp, Swamp and Island. It's not an ideal start, but I think we can keep it. Golgari draws an Edgar's Awakening, Bruno Stromkirk, Hiveheart Shaman, Mountain, Bloodtide Harvester, Grizzly Ritual, and Forest. We don't have any swamps here, and too many things that we can't cast, and so we are going to mulligan this. Now we have a Ragged Recluse, a Swamp, a Forest, a Hero's Downfall, Ascended Pack Leader, Forest, and Restless Bloodseeker. I think that this is a totally acceptable first hand. Go ahead and take the Recluse and stick this on the bottom. Dimir will start by playing their Swamp, tapping it, and then playing a Concealing Curtains. This is a 0/4 wall with Defender, and 2 in a black, transform it, activate only as a sorcery. On the backside, you have a Revealing Eye. It's a 3/4 Eye Horror with Menace, and when it transforms into Revealing Eye, target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a non-land card from it. If you do, the player discards a card and then draws a card. Then we'll pass the turn. Golgari draws a Rocktide Gargantua. We'll play a Forest. We'll tap the Forest and play an Ascendant Pack Leader. There's a 2/1 Wolf, and it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it if you control a permanent with mana value 4 or greater, and whenever you cast a spell with mana value 4 or greater, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then we'll pass the turn. Dimir draws an Island. We'll play the Island. We'll tap 2, and we'll cast a Soul Cipher board. This is an artifact. It enters the battlefield with 3 Omen counters on it, and for 1 and a blue, you can tap it to look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your graveyard. Whenever a creature card is put into your graveyard from anywhere, remove an Omen counter from Soul Cipher board. Then, if it has no Omen counters on it, transform it. On the back, you have a Cipher-bound Spirit. It's a 3/2 flyer. And it can only block creatures with flying, and you can pay 3 and a blue to draw 2 cards, then discard a card. There's our counters, and then we'll pass the turn. We draw a Swamp. We'll play a Swamp. We'll tap these 2. And we'll cast a Restless Bloodseeker. This is a 1/3 vampire at the beginning of your end step. If you gain life through this turn, create a blood token, sacrifice 2 blood tokens, transform Restless Bloodseeker, activate only as a sorcery. On the back we have a Blood-Soaked Reveler. This is a 3/3 vampire at the beginning of your end step. If you gain life this turn, create a blood token, and for 4 in black, each one loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. And then we will pass the turn. We draw an Evolving Wilds. We want to use the Concealing Curtains ability. We're going to play a Swamp, and then we are going to tap out and transform the Concealing Curtains. We're going to take a look at our opponent's hand and make them discard the Hero's Downfall. They'll draw a Grizzly Ritual to replace it. We'll take more damage than we will incur by attacking with a Revealing Eye, so we're going to stay on defense here and pass the turn. We tap here. Golgari draws a Cemetery Desecrator. Go ahead and play a second Swamp here. Don't have much else to do, so we are going to pass the turn. Untap. We draw a Siphon Essence. It's a counterspell. I'm going to play an Island. I think we want to start getting the Soul Cipher boards going. So we'll go ahead and tap 2 more mana and cast yet another Soul Cipher board. And then just stay defensive for now and pass the turn. Golgari draws a Swamp. We're going to play the second Forest, and we have no other plays this turn, so we're going to pass. At the end of Golgari's turn, we're going to tap 2, and then use one of the Soul Cipher boards to look at the next 2 cards. We have a Mind Leech Ghoul and a Swamp. We'll go ahead and put the Mind Leech Ghoul onto the graveyard. That's going to trigger down both of these Soul Cipher boards. We draw a Swamp. And then at this point, we don't need the extra Evolving Wilds, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to hold on to it to ditch to the Transform Soul Cipher. So we'll play an extra land, then we're just going to hold up Siphon Essence and stay on the defensive for now. Golgari draws an Island. We will play the Island, And then I think we spend 5 mana and cast our Rot-Tide Gargantua. This is a 5/4 zombie Kraken with Exploit, and when it exploits a creature, each opponent sacrifices a creature. This also triggers the Ascended Pack Leader, putting a counter on it. It's a big creature. Let's go ahead and counter it using Siphon Essence. It's an instant. It says counter target creature or planeswalker spell, create a blood token. Here's our blood token. The Rot-Tide Gargantua is countered. We don't have good attacks, and so we will pass the turn. At the end of Golgari's turn, we'll use the Soul Cipher board again. We'll look at the Blood Fountain, the Desperate Farmer, and drop the Desperate Farmer in the yard. This will reduce both of the counters. And we draw a Blood Fountain. We'll go ahead and pay 1 black mana to play the Blood Fountain. It's an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, create a blood token, and for 3 and a black, sacrifice it to return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. Go ahead and add a second blood token over here. I think we're going to hold the Blood Fountain's ability as our main activity for the next turn. We'll play the second swamp here for now, then we'll pass the turn. We draw an Infestation Expert. We'll play the swamp, then we'll tap 6 mana and cast the Cemetery Desecrator. It's a 4/4 zombie with menace. When it enters the battlefield or dies, exile another card from a graveyard. When you do, choose one. Remove X counters from target permanent, where X is the mana value of the exiled cards, or target creature and opponent controls gets -X until end turn, where X is the mana value of the exiled card. It's going to trigger the Ascended Pack Leader, taking it up to a 4/3. And then we're going to exile the Rot-Tide Gargantua and target the -X ability on the Revealing Eye. The eye dies. This actually managed to pop both of these, and so both of these will transform. Now that we have a means to attack, we are going to do so with the Pack Leader and the Bloodseeker for 5. Dimir takes 5 and goes to 15. Then Golgari will end the turn, and Dimir will crack the Blood Fountain, return the Concealing Curtains and the Desperate Farmer. We draw an island. At this point, we're going to spend 3 mana to use Concealing Curtain's ability to transform again. We'll go ahead and remove the Grisly Ritual. We'll play the island. We'll go to combat and swing for 6 damage. Golgari goes to 14, and Dimir will pass the turn. Golgari should have drawn a Hiveheart Shaman after getting Concealed Curtains. And we draw a forest. We'll play the forest, and we'll tap 4 mana. Cast the Hiveheart Shaman. This will put a counter on the Ascended Pack Leader, and it will be a 3/5 Human Shaman, and whenever it attacks, you may search your library for a basic land card that doesn't share a land type with a land that you control, and put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle for 5 in green, create a 1/1 green insect creature token, put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is a number of basic land types amongst the lands that you control. Activate it only as a sorcery. We have a pretty decent removal effect, but we have to deal with that flip side of the Desperate Farmer, which is a 2/2 human peasant with lifelink, and when another creature you control dies, transform it. On the backside is a Depraved Harvester. It's a 4/3 human knight with a lifelink. The Shaman can hold back the Farmer, and so I think it's okay to swing with the Desecrator to trade it for the Farmer, and then we'll also be able to nail the eye while we're at it, or maybe one of the flyers. It might be better to nail one of the flyers. So we'll go ahead and swing with the Desecrator. We see the trick that's going on here, and we're not going to buy it. We'll just take the 4 and go to 11. Then we'll pass the turn. At the end of the turn, Dimir will tap out and use the ability of the Cipherbound Spirit to draw 2. We draw a swamp and an island. We'll pitch the Evolving Wilds. We draw another swamp. I think we just go ahead and use the ability right now again. We draw a Syncopate and a Repository Scab, and we will play an island, and we will discard one of the extra swamps. We'll go to combat and swing with the Cipherbound Spirit for 6 in the air. Golgari takes 6 and goes to 8. Dimir will pass the turn. Now we drew an Edgar's Awakening. We have some options here. The Hiveheart Shaman will create a 5/5 if we just use its ability and grab another land. And so we're going to go out to combat, and we'll swing with the Cemetery Desecrator and the Hive Heart Shaman. The attack trigger will get us a basic land, which will be the mountain. I think getting the Hive Heart Shaman off the battlefield is worthwhile, so we'll block with the Revealing Eye and the Desperate Farmer. The Hive Heart Shaman will opt to put all the damage onto the Desperate Farmer, but before we do the damage effect, we're going to tap everything but 1 black mana and use the Hive Heart Shaman's ability to create a 1/1 insect. And then we will stack 4 counters on it, making it a 5/5. The Hive Heart Shaman will die. The Desperate Farmer will also die. We'll gain 2 life, but then lose 4 from the attack of the Graveyard Desecrator. So we'll go down 2 to 9. Then we'll just hang tight, see if we can get enough bodies to win in the following turn, and pass. Dimir untaps. At the end of the turn, we'll go ahead and use all of the mana again. To use the Cipherbound Spirit's ability, we'll draw a Repository Scab and a Persistent Specimen. And then we'll discard the Persistent Specimen. Then we also draw a Binding Geist. Cannot win this turn. We have 9 life left. Definitely need a blocker. We're going to cast one of the Repository Scabs. We'll go ahead and attack with the 2 Cipherbound Spirits for 6. Golgari goes down to 2. So we need a blocker on the ground. And I think Binding Geist actually is better because we can recast it again off the Disturb mechanics. So we'll spend 3 mana and play a Binding Geist as a chump blocker, and then we'll pass the turn. We draw a Blood Tithe Harvester. We need to get rid of as many of my opponent's creatures as possible. They have 2 blockers. If we get everything through, that's lethal. If we'll just get our 2 big creatures through, that's also lethal too. Unfortunately, we don't have any ways of directly undermining what my opponent is doing. And we don't have a way of stopping the flyers. Oh, but we do have the 5/5 Ant, and then if they block 2 of the 3, they'll be down to 4, which is not enough to win. Don't have much else to do, so I think we just hope to attack and hope that they are scared and see if we can get a win from that. So we'll swing with the Insect, we'll swing with the Ascendant Pack Leader, we'll swing with the Cemetery Desecrator, and we'll swing with the Restless Bloodseeker. We'll chump the Pack Leader and the Insect with the Geist and the Revealing Eye, taking us down to 4. Both of these creatures will die. By the way, the Binding Geist is a 3/1 spirit, and whenever it attacks, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-0 until end of turn, and you can distribute for 1 and a blue. On the back side, it is a Spectral Binding. Enchant creature, enchanted creature gets -2/-0, and if it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. On the second main, I don't think we have anything that we could realistically do, but we'll go ahead and tap 2 to cast the Blood Tithe Harvester. It's a 3/2 vampire, and when it enters the battlefield, create a blood token. You can tap it to sacrifice Blood Tithe Harvester, and target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn, where X is twice the number of blood tokens you control, activate only as a sorcery. So we get 1 blood token, and then we'll spend 5 more mana to cast it. Infestation Expert. This is a 3/4 human werewolf, and whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. There's that, and it's day bound. Now it's day. On the back side, it is an infested werewolf. It's a 4/5 werewolf, and when it enters the battlefield or attacks, create 2 1/1 green insect creature tokens, and it is nightbound. Then we'll pass the turn. None of that impacts what we're trying to do here, so we'll go ahead and spend 4 more mana to draw 2, which is a Scattered Thoughts and a Desperate Farmer, and we will discard the Swamp. Then we also draw an island. At this point, we just swing for the win, right? So we swing with the 2 Cipherbound Souls and defeat Golgari in a pretty close match. We'll do some sideboarding if there is anything that we have to sideboard, and we'll be back for the next game. Golgari will sideboard in 1 card, which is trading Crushing Canopy for the Restless Bloodseeker. For the second game, Golgari will opt to go first. We draw a Gluttonous Guest, Forest, Plains, Persistent Specimen, Edgar's Awakening, Forest, and Swamp. It's not ideal, but we can keep this one. Dimir draws a Swamp, a Dreadlight Monstrosity, Desperate Farmer, Repository Scab, a Siphon Essence, and Binding Geist. We cannot keep a hand that is mostly green with 2 swamps, so we are going to mulligan. Now we hit a Swamp, Grisly Ritual, Siphon Essence, Swamp, Dreadlight Monstrosity, Island. It's much better because we do have that island, and I think we have to pitch one of these swamps, I guess. So let's do that. Golgari will play a Swamp, tap, and cast a Persistent Specimen. This is a 1/1 skeleton with 2 and black. Return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, and we'll pass a turn. Dimir draws an island. We'll go ahead and play an island. We'll pass a turn. Golgari draws a Rock-Tide Gargantua. We'll go ahead and play a forest now, and we'll swing with Persistent Skeleton for 1. Dimir takes 1 and goes to 19. Then Golgari will pass a turn. Dimir draws a Swamp. We'll play a Swamp, and then Dimir will pass a turn. Golgari taps, draws a island. Go ahead and play the island. Tap out. Cast a Gluttonous Guest. This is a 1/4 vampire, and when it enters the battlefield, create a blood token. Whenever you sacrifice a blood token, you'll gain 1 life. And then we will swing with a Persistent Specimen for 1. Dimir takes 1 and goes to 18. Golgari will pass a turn. Dimir draws an island. We will play the island. And we'll hold up Siphon Essence and pass a turn. We drew another Swamp. We will play the other Swamp. We'll swing with 2 creatures for 2. Dimir takes 2 and goes to 16. Then Golgari will pass a turn. Dimir draws a Desperate Farmer. We'll play a black mana. We'll tap 3, and we'll cast the Desperate Farmer, and then we'll pass a turn. We draw Edgar Charmed Groom. This is really good, but I think we have a unique opportunity here, so we'll play the Plains now, and we'll tap 5 mana, and cast the Rock-Tide Gargantua. We'll be using the exploit ability to sacrifice the Persistent Specimen. This causes us to sacrifice the Desperate Farmer on Dimir's side. Then we'll go to combat and swing with a Gluttonous Guest for 1. Dimir goes to 15, and Golgari will pass a turn. Dimir draws a Mind Leech Ghoul. Go ahead and play another island. Don't know that the ghoul doing anything is going to be anything more than a chumper. At this point, I think that's what we have to do. So we'll spend 2 mana to cast the Mind Leech Ghoul. It's a 2/2 zombie with exploit, and when it exploits a creature, each opponent exiles a card from their hand. We're not going to exploit anything, and then we'll pass a turn. Then we draw a Desperate Farmer, play a forest. I think it's about time to get the Charmed Groom into play. So go ahead and tap 4 mana to cast Edgar Charmed Groom. This is a 4/4 legendary vampire noble. Other vampires you control get +1/+1. When Edgar dies, return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. The backside is Edgar Markov's Coffin. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white and black vampire creature token with lifelink and put a bloodline counter on Edgar Markov's Coffin. Then if there are 3 or more bloodline counters on it, remove those counters and transform it. Dimir casts Siphon Essence. We'll get a blood counter. Edgar is countered. We'll swing with the Rock-Tide Gargantua for 5. We'll take 5 and go to 10. Golgari will pass a turn. We draw a Gift of Things. We're going to play the Swamp. We just have to bust up their attacker. So we'll spend 6 mana and cast Grisly Ritual. This is a sorcery. Destroy target creature or planeswalker and create 2 blood tokens. Get the 2 blood tokens go to 3, and we'll destroy the Mindwalk Gargantua. Gargantua dies. Stand the defense and pass the turn. Golgari draws a Wolf Strike. We'll spend 5 mana and cast Edgar's Awakening. This is a sorcery. Return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. When you discard it, you may pay black. If you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. We are returning Edgar to the battlefield. And then we'll attack with a Gluttonous Guest, which is now a 2/5. We'll take the 2 and go down to 8. And then Golgari will pass a turn. Dimir draws a Skywarp Scob. We need to stem the bleeding here. So we'll play for 6 mana the Dreadlight Monstrosity. This is a 5/5 Crab Horror with Ward 2. And for 3 blue, it can't be blocked on this turn. Activate only if you own a card in exile. And then we'll pass the turn. We draw a Forest. Don't have good attacks right now. So we'll spend 3 mana. Cast a Desperate Farmer, and then we'll play the Forest, and we'll pass the turn right now. Dimir draws an island. We don't have good attacks or good plays because we need another creature in the graveyard for the Scab. So we'll crack one of the blood tokens, discard the island, and we'll draw an Evolving Wilds, which isn't any better. We'll crack another blood token, discard the Evolving Wilds, and we'll draw a Persistent Specimen, which is a chump creature, I guess. So go ahead and play the Specimen. We'll pass the turn. At the end of the turn, Golgari will also tap 3 and grab the Persistent Specimen from the yard. It'll enter the battlefield tapped. We draw a swamp. It's not terribly useful for what we're doing here either, so we will tap the plains, crack the blood, discard the swamp, draw a mountain. We'll play the mountain. Don't have any good attacks, and so we will pass the turn. We need something a little bit more useful, so we're going to crack the less blood here. Discarding the Gift of Fangs, drawing the Rot-Tide Gargantua. It's especially bad against this particular group. We draw a Storm Chaser Drake. That may be our ticket here. We have the ground locked up pretty well, so let's play 2. Cast the Storm Chaser Drake. It's a 2/1 Drake with flying, and when it becomes a target of a spell you control, draw a card. I think that's reasonable. We don't have any good attacks, so we'll pass the turn. I think knocking down the flyer is pretty good based on what we experienced last time. So we'll spend 3 mana and cast Wolf Strike. Gets an instant, target creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn if it's night, and deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. We'll have the Desperate Farmer deal 2 to the flyer. We'll go up to 22. Drake dies. Golgari draws a swamp. I think we're still in no good attacks mode, and so we will pass the turn here. Now we have a Soul Cipher board. Oh, that's interesting. Alright, we'll spend 2 mana to cast a Soul Cipher board. No good attacks, so we'll pass the turn. Golgari draws a swamp. Play one of the swamps. Oh, we should have gained 1 life because of the blood sacrifice, so we'll go up to 23. And then we'll pass the turn. At the end of the turn, we'll use 2 mana to look at the next 2 cards. We have a Skywarp Scab and an island. We'll drop the Scab and then leave the island on top. So we'll make the Cipher board go down to 2. Draw the island. We'll play the island. And then at this point, I think playing the other Skywarp Scab is pretty useful. So we'll spend 5 mana. Cast a Skywarp Scab. This is a 2/5 zombie drake with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you may exile 2 creature cards from your graveyard. If you do, draw a card. We will exile the Desperate Farmer and the Storm Chaser Drake to draw a Soul Cipher board. Spend 2 mana to play another Soul Cipher board, and we don't have good attacks, so we'll pass the turn. Golgari draws a Hero's Downfall. Unfortunately, we still don't have good attacks here, but we do have to deal with the flyer. Unfortunately, that speeds up the return of the other flyers, so it's not the best place for us to Hero's Downfall. But that said, we've got to not let ourselves die to flyers again, so we could deal with it now, but I think we're just going to hold until it becomes a more legitimate threat, and we'll pass the turn. Dimir draws a Repository Scab. This is where things get more interesting for Dimir. We'll spend 4 mana, cast a Repository Scab. It's a 3/3 zombie with exploit. When it exploits a creature, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. We'll exploit the Persistent Specimen for the Grisly Ritual. We'll go to combat, and that will trigger the counter removals. So we'll go down to 2 and 1. We'll go to combat and swing with the Skywarp Scab. I think taking the 2 is fine here, so we'll go to 21. Then Dimir will pass the turn. I think we need to save the Hero's Downfall for the 3/2s. So we'll pass. We'll go ahead and start our turn. We'll draw a Ragged Recluse, and I guess just play that. This is a 2/1 Human Peasant at the beginning of your end step. If you discarded a card this turn, transform it. On the other side, it's an Odious Witch. Whenever it attacks, defending player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. It's a 3/3 Human Warlock. Don't have anything else to do right now, so we're going to pass the turn. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Soul Cipher board ability. We'll draw an island and a swamp, and we will discard an island. Draw an island. We don't have the best attacks on the ground, but if we can get up in the air, it's going to make a big difference. So we'll go ahead and play the swamp. We'll spend 2. We'll look at the swamp and the island, and we'll put an island in the graveyard. spend 5 now and cast the Rot-Tide Gargantua, but we will not use the exploit ability. We'll swing with the Skyward Scab for 2 in the air. Golgari will take 2 and go to 19, and then Dimir will pass a turn. Golgari draws a Crushing Canopy. Alright, now we have ways of dealing with the bigger flyers, but we wanted to use them to get rid of the other 2, right? So, because 2 damage is not as bad as 3, so we'll just hold for now, pass the turn. Dimir taps. We draw a Swamp. We don't want our opponent to get any more life, and Edgar just keeps coming back. But I think we just hold until we see something a little bit more dangerous, because they're not really incentivized to attack. So we'll spend 2 mana, and Soul Cipher board again. We'll look at the 2, throw the Desperate Farmer in the yard, leave the Blood Fountain on top. This will reduce this. Soul Cipher board will transform into a Cipher Bound Spirit. We'll go to combat. Before combat, we're going to spend 3 mana, cast Crushing Canopy. It's an instant. It says choose 1, destroy target creature with flying, or destroy target enchantment. We'll destroy the Cipher Bound Spirit. This kills the Cipher Bound Spirit, but that removes the counter here, and this will become another tapped Cipher Bound Spirit. We'll go attacking with the Skyward Scab for 2. We'll take 2 and go to 17. Dimir will play an island. We're going to tap 3 more mana and cast Hero's Downfall, targeting the other Cipher Bound Spirit. Hero's Downfall is an instant, destroy target creature or planeswalker. In response, Dimir will tap 4. We'll draw a Blood Fountain and a Syncopate. We'll discard the Syncopate, and then the Cipher Bound Spirit will die. Then we'll spend 1 mana and play a Blood Fountain. Get ourselves a Blood Token. I think we have the means to start attacking with this group now that we have more defenders, but we'll see. Dimir will pass the turn. We draw a Pointed Discussion. I think we need to do that, so we'll spend 3 mana and cast a Pointed Discussion. It's a sorcery. You draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, and create a Blood Token. We'll draw a Bloodsworn Squire, a Hiveheart Shaman. We'll lose 2 life to go to 15, and we'll make 1 Blood Token. Now we have an engine, so we'll spend 4 mana to cast the Hiveheart Shaman. We have all the colors, so we just need to make 6s every turn. Seems like a good plan here. We don't have good attacks, so we'll pass the turn. We draw a Repository Scab. Right, I think this is where we have to start blowing things up. We'll spend 6 mana to cast Grisly Ritual, targeting the Repository Scab. We'll get 2 more blood tokens and destroy the Hiveheart Shaman. Shaman dies, Desperate Farmer transforms. We're going to play the Swamp. We'll attack with the Skyward Scab for 2. Golgari goes to 13, and Dimir will pass the turn. We draw another Swamp. At this point the Swamps aren't doing too much for us, but we'll go ahead and spend 4 mana and play the Bloodsworn Squire. This is a 3/3 Vampire Soldier with 1 black, discard a card. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. Then if there are 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard, transform it. On the other side, it is a Star Vampire Knight, and its power and toughness are equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. You can pay 1 in black and discard a card to give it indestructible until end of turn and tap it. Only has 2 creatures in the graveyard, so it actually is negative to transform it right now. So we'll hold off on that. Fortunately, we still do not have good attacks, so we are stuck waiting here. So we will crack the blood. We'll gain 1 life from the guest, go up to 14. We'll discard a Swamp to draw a Cemetery Desecrator. That's kind of what we're looking for here. We need to get rid of the flyer. Unfortunately, if we try to hit their Skywarp Scab, they're just going to use their Blood Fountain to get it. So we're in a bit of a bind, unless we can get something from our yard that costs that much, but we don't really have that either. Well, we have the Rot-Tide Gargantua, but then they're just going to buy both of them back, which is also not good for us. I guess we can get rid of their 5/5 on the ground so that we can attack with Edgar more relentlessly, but we would need extra mana to pay the ward costs, so that is not great right now. So I think that we're going to have to play the land and pass the turn for the time being. Hopefully we'll be able to turn it back around in the next turn. At the end of the turn, we will use 3 mana to activate the ability to get the Persistent Specimen onto the battlefield tapped. And we'll draw a Scattered Thoughts. I think we have a game plan here. Part of it is spending 4 mana to cast another repository scab, which will sacrifice the persistent specimen to get the Grisly Thoughts back. Don't have anything to deal with on the ground, but we want to be able to deal with threats as they appear. And then I think we want to get our ground creatures back as well, our air creatures back. So I think we want to just build our board here. So we're going to swing with the Skywarp Scab. That deals 2, and we'll take Golgari to 12. And I think we pop the Blood Fountain, get back the Skywarp Scab and the Desperate Farmer. And we have 2 open mana, but that's not going to lead to much, and we'll pass the turn for now. Draw another Hiveheart Shaman. That's good to see, but we know that they're going to play the Grizzly to remove it, and so we need to create a better target for it. Unfortunately, we don't have one right now. The Desecrator can take out one of the scabs in the sky. I guess that's a way to reduce the damage that we're taking, so I think that's what we'll do. We'll spend 6 mana. Cast the Cemetery Desecrator. We'll exile the Rot-Tide Gargantua over here to do -X/-X. So Dreadlight Monstrosity will pay the ward cost. Monstrosity goes down. We need to go a little wider, but we have the Hiveheart Shaman. Hopefully you can get my opponent to target something else. In the meantime, we'll pass the turn. And we have a swamp. Alright, we'll go ahead and start by casting another Skywarp Scab. We'll exile the Monstrosity. At this point, the Persistent Specimen. Draw a card. We drew a Biting Geist. Don't have anything we need to remove, so we'll just attack for 2 in the air for now. Can't block, we're going to 10. And then we'll just go wide by spending 3 to cast a Desperate Farmer. 3 more to cast a Binding Geist, and then we'll pass the turn. Now we have a forest. Play the forest. We'll spend 4 mana to cast a Hiveheart Shaman. Then we'll, before it dies, we'll spend 6 to make a 6/6 insect. We'll pass the turn. Draw an Undead Butler. We do not want to cast that because we only have 5 cards left in the yard. We also don't want to cast the Scattered Thoughts. So we're just going to Grizzly Ritual down the Hiveheart Shaman. We'll get 2 more bloods. Shaman dies. We'll swing with the 2 scabs for 4. We'll take 4 and go to 6. Then Dimir will pass a turn. We draw an Ascended Pack Leader. We're going to die in the air if we don't start making attacks. So I think we're going to swing with the Bloodsworn Squire, the Depraved Harvester, the Cemetery Desecrator, and the 6/6. We'll have to deal with the 6/6. So we'll trade a scab for the Harvester. I think we're going to put the Repository Scab and the Mind Leech Ghoul on the Squire, the Gargantua and the Binding Geist on the 6/6. We'll spend 2 mana to chuck the Ascended Pack Leader to give this indestructible. This will transform the Ragged Recluse. The 6/6 will trade. The Depraved Harvester will trade. We'll gain 4 life to go back up to 10. Dimir will go down to 4. We'll lose these 2. They'll put the damage onto the Scab, and the Mind Leech Ghoul will survive. The Scab will trade. The Desperate Farmer will transform, and the Golgari will pass a turn. We draw a Stitched Assistant. I think we just need to hold the ground long enough for us to finish off my opponent, but I'm not sure that we have enough turns with 3 cards left in the yard and 2 completely unplayable cards here. We'll spend 3 to play the Stitched Assistant. This is a 3/2 zombie with Exploit, and when it exploits a creature, scry 1, then draw a card. We have to stay defensive on the ground, and they have actually multiple lethal patches here, so we're gonna have to hope that we can draw something a little better here. Then we will have to pass the turn. Golgari draws another Cemetery Desecrator. That's kind of what we were hoping to get here. Let's see if we have anything we can exile. Seems good. We'll spend 6 mana. Cast another Cemetery Desecrator. We'll exile one of these Hiveheart Shamans. Do -X/-X to the Depraved Harvester. Harvester dies. We'll swing with the Bloodsworn Squire, the Cemetery Desecrator, and the Odious Witch. Swinging with the Witch drains for 1. Dimir goes down to 3. Golgari to 12. We need to stop the Desecrator, so we'll put the Mind Leech Ghoul and the Scab against the Desecrator. And then the Stitched Assistant will block the Witch, and the Scab will block the Knight. The Desecrator will eat the Ghoul, and the Stitched Assistant will trade. Witch dies. Scab dies, and we will exile the Recluse to finish off the Skywarp Scab that blocked. Skywarp Scab dies, and that's it for Golgari. We draw a Swamp. It's not gonna get us anywhere here, so we'll crack one of the Bloods, discard the Swamp, and draw a Concealing Curtains. I guess we go ahead and play the Concealing Curtains, and then we'll transform it to make it a better blocker. Well, we won't use the discard effect, and then we'll pass the turn. Golgari draws a Forest. It was grind, but I think we got there. We'll swing with the whole team. And no matter how Dimir blocks, they are going to take at least 4 damage from either Edgar or the Cemetery Desecrator. And so Golgari defeats the Dimir deck in game 2, taking us to 1-1. We'll be right back for the final game. Dimir is going to sub out the Gift of Fangs for Runo Stromkirk, mostly because Runo is a flyer, and it seems like flyers are effective against my opponent's deck. So that will be it for our substitutions for game 3. For the final game, Dimir will choose to go first. We draw a Siphon Essence, Blood Fountain, Skywarp Scab, Repository Scab, Desperate Farmer, Island, and Swamp. It's not ideal, but I think we have to keep it. Golgari draws a Hiveheart Shaman, Island, Forest, Swamp, Mountain, and Rot Tide Gargantua. This is really slow, but my opponent doesn't have that fast of a deck, so I think we can keep it for now. Dimir will play the Swamp, tap it, and cast the Blood Fountain. That will get us a Blood token. I'll pass the turn. Golgari draws an Edgar's Awakening, and we'll play a Swamp, and then we'll pass the turn. Dimir draws a Syncopate, and we'll play the Island, and then we'll pass the turn. Golgari draws a Bloodsworn Squire, we'll play a Forest, and then we'll pass the turn. We want to make sure that we can get the land that we need, and so we're going to crack this Blood and discard the Repository Scab to draw a Swamp. We draw an Undead Butler, go ahead and play the Swamp. I think we just want to play on curve here, so we'll go ahead and tap 3 and cast the Desperate Farmer. We'll pass the turn. Golgari draws a Crushing Canopy. We will play another Swamp here. We'll pass the turn. We draw a Repository Scab. We are getting a little bit mana screwed here. I cannot cast a Scab. We could cast Undead Butler, but right now that doesn't seem to be too helpful. We're just going to hold up Siphon Essence and Syncopate, and then we'll attack with Desperate Farmer. Golgari takes 2 and goes to 18. Dimir passes the turn. Golgari draws a Swamp. We'll play an Island. I think the Hiveheart Shaman will ramp us pretty well. The Squire is an excellent defender. I think we want to be able to use the ability of the Hiveheart Shaman, so let's go ahead and cast the Bloodsworn Squire first. Dimir will play Siphon Essence Encounter. Will get us another Blood token. The Squire never materializes, and Golgari will pass the turn. We draw an Island, we'll play the Island. We'll swing with the Desperate Farmer for 2. Golgari takes 2 and goes to 16. We'll keep a Mana Tithe up with the Syncopate, and we'll spend 2 to cast the Undead Butler. This is a 1/2 zombie. When it enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards, and when it dies, you may exile it. When you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. We will mill an Island, a Grisly Ritual, and an Island. And then we'll pass the turn. Draw an Honored Heirloom. I think dealing with the stuff in my opponent's yard is actually quite important for this deck. We'll play the Mountain. We have extra land to start using the Hiveheart Shaman soon, so I think we're going to cast that. Dimir does not have enough mana to force a counterspell, so we'll just hold. And then Golgari pass the turn. Dimir draws an Island. We'll play the Island. We'll spend 4. Cast the Scab. We'll sacrifice the Undead Butler to get back the Grisly Ritual, and the Undead Butler to get back the Repository Scab. exiling the Undead Butler. Don't have good attacks, so we'll pass a turn. We draw a Gluttonous Guest. We'll play the Swamp. At this point, I don't think we need to do anything other than just make these ants, and we'll just run the game over with 5/5s. So no attacks. We'll spend 6 mana while they're tapped down to make a 5/5 ant, and we'll pass a turn. Draw a Soul Cipher board. It looks like going over the head of Golgari may be the only way through this, so we'll spend 2 and we'll cast the Soul Cipher board. We don't have good attacks, so we'll pass the turn. Draw another Hiveheart Shaman. I mean, we could cast it, but we don't need to cast it. All I have to do is swing with a 5/5. Dimir will decline to block, and we'll take 5 to go to 15. Then we'll spend 6 mana and make another 5/5. Then we'll pass the turn. Got another island. I'll play the island. Now we have to blow up that creature generator, so we'll cast Grisly Ritual, giving us a couple more blood tokens, destroying the Hiveheart Shaman. Shaman dies. And Dimir has no good attacks, so we'll pass the turn. We drew an Infestation Expert, but I think the best thing to do here is to spend 3 mana to cast an Honored Heirloom. This is an artifact. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color, and pay 2 and tap it to exile target card from graveyard. And then we'll just spend 4 mana here for another Hiveheart Shaman. We'll attack with the 2 5/5s. We're in a bit of a pickle here. I'm going to take 10 to go to 5, and then Golgari will pass a turn. We have a Persistent Specimen. So this is where we're going to play the Persistent Specimen, and then we're going to tap out with 4, cast a Repository Scab, sacrifice a Persistent Specimen to get another Grisly Ritual. So we'll reduce one of these counters. But it looks like we're in a pretty bad place here, and then we'll pass the turn. We'll draw a Blood Tithe Harvester, and we could cast that. We could swing with the 2 5/5s. We are down to 5, so we're going to put 2 Repository Scabs on one and then chump the other with the Desperate Farmer. These 2 will die, and the Soul Cipher board will transform. One of the 5/5s will die, and then we'll just go ahead and spend 6 mana to make another 5/5. Then we'll pass the turn. Dimir taps, draws a Swamp. We'll play the Swamp. We are in many kinds of trouble here. We'll spend 6 mana to blow up the Hiveheart Shaman again. We'll get 2 more blood tokens to go up to 5 tokens. The Shaman dies. We'll go attacking with this Cipher-bound Spirit since it can't block for 3. Golgari goes to 13. The Dimir will pass the turn. Golgari draws a Forest. We'll play the Forest. Go to combat with the 2 5/5s and swing. Dimir can only block one of them, and so Dimir will perish under the weight of ants all over the place. And that is a very definitive victory for Golgari in 2 and 1. Let me know what your thoughts were about the match in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can hit subscribe. This is Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.